Remember that diabetes is a condition where you have an excess amount of glucose in your blood. It's not a condition where you have an excess amount of sugar in your blood, as sugar breaks down into glucose. Also, remember that all food breaks down into chemicals. In the case of carbohydrates, these foods predominantly break down into glucose. Thus, if you have diabetes or an inability to clear excess glucose out of your blood, you have to moderate the carbohydrates you are eating each meal to avoid dumping an excess amount of glucose into your blood. So, following a very high carbohydrate meal plan for most people with diabetes would usually lead to poor glucose control. Now, this does not mean that you should follow the latest fad diet, such as low carbohydrate, high fat and protein diet. Remember, we're here to reduce complications, such as heart attacks and strokes that may be caused with excess amounts of proteins and fats. The solution? Moderation. Eating healthy for diabetes is all about moderation. Avoid having large meals heavy on carbohydrates and less proteins and fat, or meals that have a large amount of saturated fat and cholesterol that raise your cholesterol levels over time. Truly, healthy eating for diabetes is not a diet. It's about eating healthier foods more often and in smaller portions. Something we should be doing most of the time already. When thinking about food and diabetes, it's helpful to put food into 4 groups: carbohydrates, proteins, fats, as well as free foods, foods that don't raise your glucose levels at all. Carbohydrates include all of the following: breads, hot or cold cereals, rice, pasta, grains such as barley, crackers, fruit and fruit juices, milk and dairy products such as yogurt and ice cream, candy and sweets, starchy vegetables, corn, peas, white and sweet potatoes, lentils, navy beans, pinto beans, garbanzo beans, white beans, split peas, black-eyed peas, squash, winter, butternut, acorn, yams of all kinds, baked beans, and mixed vegetables that include any of the starchy vegetables we've mentioned. Now, these foods are not bad for you, nor should they be avoided, but having an excess amount of these foods combined at one meal or snack is dumping a lot of glucose into your body all at once. You could follow a very high carbohydrate diet and lose weight and not raise your cholesterol. However, this is not a good plan for tight glucose control. What's most important about these carbohydrates, which we call dense carbohydrates, is that you do not combine too many of these at one time, and make sure you spread these throughout the day. Again, not too much at once. There is another group of carbohydrates that we call less dense. That includes all non-starchy vegetables that raise glucose levels approximately 1/3 less than dense carbohydrates. The non-starchy vegetables include artichokes and artichoke hearts, asparagus, green beans, wax beans, Italian beans, string beans, bean sprouts, beets, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, celery, cucumber, eggplant, green onions or scallions, collard greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, kale, kohlrabi, leeks, mushrooms, okra, onions, pea pods, peppers of all kinds, radishes, all salad greens such as iceberg, Boston leaf, endive, escarole, spinach and romaine, sauerkraut, summer squash, tomatoes, tomato sauce, tomato juice, canned tomatoes, turnips, water chestnuts, watercress, and zucchini. These foods are not free in that they will raise glucose levels, but you would have to eat a lot of these to raise your blood glucose. For example, it would take about 1.5 cups of broccoli, which is a less dense carbohydrate, to raise your glucose levels as much as just 1/2 cup of a dense carbohydrate like corn or peas.